What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you back on ESPN with a 12-team PPR mock where we will be selecting from that fourth overall position. Should be interesting. And while we get to our pick, a quick reminder, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, let us hear it in the comment section, your thoughts of our squad and our picks. And obviously, if you haven't already, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide, available for purchase now on alldaypigskin.com. All the details in the description, but everything you could want at a great price. With that being said, though, let's dive into this draft because we're picking here specifically fourth overall because we wanted to put ourselves in a position where we can't pick from the top two guys, Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, who are usually unanimously the first two picks. And so it kind of precipitates a situation where between that slot of third, fourth, fifth overall gets a little bit difficult. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. You see Derrick Henry as the third pick overall. So now we have to decide between Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott pretty much. And it's full point PPR, so I do really like Alvin Kamara. Now, the situation with the Saints and the unknown at the quarterback position does have me a little bit worried about Kamara, more so than, let's say, a Michael Thomas. Saquon Barkley, will his injury be 100% good to go starting week one? Not sure either. So right now, we're just going to switch things up a little bit and go Ezekiel Elliott with that first pick overall for us in the first round, at least, because well, with Zeke, we know that Dak Prescott is going to be returning back healthy, so that's going to be a boost to the offense. Zeke, not dealing really with any injuries. The offensive line, sure, it's not as dominant as it once was, definitely not denying that, but it's, in my opinion, still at a better spot than that of the New York Giants. And the Dallas Cowboys, they use Ezekiel Elliott a lot as another, dual threat running back, as a pass catcher, as a rusher. So I think he will still have some value in PPR scoring formats. Now, again, I don't have him in that tier one category, but way too early to be talking about, a pass catcher. And now let's quickly look at these selections here. After we went Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara goes. That's, to be expected. I probably if it wasn't Zeke, it would have been Alvin Kamara. Then you see actually Travis Kelce go before Saquon Barkley. That's definitely surprising in my opinion. People love Travis Kelce. People love the advantage at the tight end position. 1000%. I understand it's valuable. But to me, until you get past, let's say, the Ezekiel Elliott, the Alvin Kamara, and the Saquon Barkleys, I'll even throw in Austin Eckler's, you probably shouldn't be drafting a pass catcher in the first round. To me, those running backs are still more valuable than the pass catchers. But you'll see this. You'll see Travis Kelce as a mid-first rounder. That's how valuable he has become, even though I think you could still go and land a Darren Waller in the third round, maybe even in the fourth round, and be just as fine, and instead having drafted a great running back in the first round. Then Saquon Barkley in seventh overall, good value there. Jonathan Taylor in PPR scoring eighth, a little bit too early for me. I like Austin Eckler, ninth pick overall. I keep saying this, his value will be trending upwards as you see. Then Nick Chubb, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. So a run on pass catchers, Stephon Diggs, Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Gibson, and Joe Mixon. So we've seen a lot of the running backs kind of go off the board, which, again, should give you comfort that we went with a pick like an Ezekiel Elliott and didn't go with a pass catcher. Now, Naji Harris goes off the board. He was, in my opinion, ranked way too high here. Just looking at some of these other running backs, guys that I would rather have than Naji Harris, I keep saying this, but Chris Carson is a guy that's extremely, extremely undervalued. I'll try and get him in the third round. But now we're pretty much mostly looking at pass catchers, and I am between Calvin Ridley and Michael Thomas. Maybe Keenan Allen because of PPR, but I'll go with Calvin Ridley for now. We'll see if Michael Thomas is available to us in the third round. I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out. Him or Chris Carson would be my pick in the third round. The logic with Calvin Ridley obviously being the fact that Julio Jones isn't there. I've said this a lot I almost sound like a broken record, but Calvin Ridley without Julio Jones has a chance to be the number one overall scoring wide receiver in all of fantasy football. I feel like he should be getting drafted higher. I don't understand why he's continuously being drafted towards the end of the second round. Yes, the offense will take a step back without Julio Jones, but Calvin Ridley will be able to carry, a big part of this offense on his shoulders alone. So for what that's worth, that's how I kind of view that situation with Ridley in Atlanta. But let's quickly, just kind of look at the second round if there were any picks that stuck out. I do think Aaron Jones, probably all things considered, since he's a pretty good pass-catching running back, good value there. Cam Akers, DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Gibson is someone that I'm getting higher and higher on than Joe Mixon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that early in the second round, that's probably the earliest I've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire go. And I don't necessarily dislike it because I am a CEH believer, and I do see him bouncing back in a big way this season and, kind of delivering what we expected from him last season, but just a year later. So now, like I mentioned before, we are on the clock here. So let's quickly look at, what happened after a Calvin Ridley selection. Run on wide receivers: DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, some running backs: Swift, Sanders, then Keenan Allen. But here, I kind of told you guys, I'm between two players, Michael Thomas and Chris Carson. I'm guessing that Chris Carson won't fall to us, but there's a better chance, obviously, he falls to us than a Michael Thomas. And I'm just going to go with Michael Thomas here. I think he's a great PPR wide receiver. I mentioned it before, even though Alvin Kamara, in my opinion, would be affected by Taysom Hill being named the starting quarterback. To me, Michael Thomas's floor isn't impacted by that. His ceiling, yes, because, Jameis Winston has a higher possibility of throwing for, let's say, just over 5,000 yards through the air. So that would obviously put Michael Thomas with a better chance for more receiving yards, more touchdowns, more receptions, et cetera, et cetera. But here, this is definitely a gamble to see what happens with Chris Carson. Truthfully, I don't think that we will be able to land him. And as soon as I say that, he's drafted with the 9th pick in the 3rd round. But there's some other, running backs that we could potentially get later on, guys like a Myles Gaskin, maybe a David Montgomery, in the 4th, 5th round. And of course, I say his name, he's drafted at the end of the 3rd round. So now we're kind of looking at the Myles Gaskin type of territory. After Michael Thomas was drafted, you saw Terry McLaurin, a run on running backs, Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, Chris Carson, David Montgomery. Now George Kittle with the 1st pick in the 4th round, pretty good value there. I do like to see the fact that Darren Waller is now, it seems like, more and more being a second, overall tight end being selected ahead of George Kittle and right after Travis Kelce. Then you see Mike Evans. So Mike Evans is an interesting player to me in Tampa Bay. He was a guy that was probably being drafted towards the end of the 2nd round last season, and he had a great fantasy football year in 2020. But now, with Antonio Brown back, with a Chris Godwin fully healthy, I completely endorse the fact that he should be like a 4th round selection, maybe even later. I don't view any of the Tampa Bay wide receivers or wide receiver ones as opposed to, I would view Robert Woods, Julio Jones, maybe even Deontay Johnson as potential wide receiver ones. Same with Cooper Kupp. So I really don't like any of Mike Evans or Chris Godwin at their current ADPs, especially I don't understand why you're drafting Mike Evans ahead of Chris Godwin in any type of PPR format. That makes zero sense to me. If this was standard scoring, sure, I understand that, but that's not the case, so I can't really get behind that pick. Now, we have got 2 more selections for our 4th pick, and again, obviously Chris Carson isn't available. I was hoping maybe there would be a slim chance that he'd be available here, but yeah, no, that wasn't meant to be, and I kind of knew it in the back of my mind. I was just, more so just curious where he would go. But again, that's why we do these mock drafts. If this was the real thing and knowing the importance of the running back position and kind of the drop off there, I probably wouldn't have gambled and taken Michael Thomas. As much as I love him in the 3rd round, I probably would have gone Chris Carson, doing the smarter thing. Even though I will say right now, we if you want to say maybe get a little bit lucky, Myles Gaskin's still available. I do think he's pretty decent value here towards the end of the 4th round. We need a running back. In my opinion, he's by far the best available running back still on the board. Let's kind of sort them out, but he will be our pick here. I don't like Chase Edmonds, don't like ETN, Kareem Hunt, backup role, Mike Davis. We don't know what Atlanta is going to do. Are they going to bring in somebody else? James Robinson would probably, him and Mike Davis would be my next highest ranked running back. So, hey, at least we got Myles Gaskin. I really like our wide receiver core. If, I will say this right now, if we had gone Chris Carson in the 3rd round, I probably right now would have drafted either a Deontay Johnson or a Cooper Kupp and would have been very, very happy with either one of those selections. We've got some auto picks now, so we'll see who gets back to us. I would love it if Cooper Kupp is available. If not, we got to pivot a little bit and see what we can do at some other positions. I think Cooper Kupp is a great, great option as a flex play. DJ Moore, not bad either. Jamar Chase, a very intriguing rookie. T. Higgins, just a great value pick. I've been able to get him, probably, I'd say, a round later after this. But we get really lucky because, it's a combination of some auto picks, a combination of maybe some people reaching for a positional importance like running back. Mike Davis goes off the board. So I've got Cooper Kupp available to me here in the 5th round. That is an absolute steal, one of the biggest steals in the draft, in my opinion. I just want to compare to where Robert Woods went in this draft because I continue to say this and I 1000% believe it. These guys, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, should be drafted one right after the other. And you see Robert Woods was drafted in the 4th round with the 40th overall pick. We got Cooper Kupp with the 52nd pick. That is full, in a 12-team league, an entire round later. That is tremendous, tremendous value. One of the bigger steals so far, at least on our roster. So I like how that turns out. We've got a very, very strong receiving group here. Now, we'll see what happens with, running back depth, et cetera, some quarterback positions. But again, let's see what's taking place after our selection of Cooper Kupp. You see Jamar Chase, someone that I was potentially considering, Kenny Golladay, DJ Moore, good value on DJ Moore there. Odell Beckham, not really someone that I'm touching. I don't believe in Baker Mayfield as that big-time passing quarterback, especially when the Browns are a run-first team, maybe more so than anybody in the NFL, and that they just have so many weapons in terms of pass catchers. So afterwards, Chase Edmonds, Courtland Sutton, Dak Prescott. So a little bit of a run on quarterbacks. I'm pretty intrigued by the fact that Justin Herbert, as much as I like him, that he was drafted before Lamar Jackson. That makes, honestly no sense to me. If Lamar Jackson is there for us with a 69th overall pick, nice. We'll draft him, no question about it. Of course, he gets drafted right now as soon as I say that, but, what can you do? That's the situation. T. Higgins, also somebody else that we were considering. If at this point, unfortunately, TJ Hawkinson was drafted, someone that I would have loved to take in the 6th round, but great value for him. I've seen him in other mocks on other platforms that I've done be as high as a 4th round selection. Kyle Pitts just goes, man. He was going to be someone that I tried to take a chance on as well, but no luck, I guess. So we can look at the running back position now, and maybe to some extent, I kind of alluded to it with James Robinson. Let's see if he's still there. So he is 91st overall. I think that's, kind of a little bit low for where James Robinson should be ranked. Brendan Ayuk is someone that is also interesting. You see some tight ends at this point in time, but I think James Robinson right now is probably, considering that we need to get some depth at that position, and that there are enough reports coming out of Jacksonville that he's still going to retain some type of substantial starting running back role. ETN, he's more so going to be a 3rd down back, which unfortunately is going to greatly limit James Robinson's upside as a pass catcher. But I think he's got low-end RB2 upside still, and I'd rather go with him than any of these other guys. Raheem Mostert, he can't stay healthy. There's so many running backs in San Francisco. Melvin Gordon, running back by committee in Denver. So I think that James Robinson gets more volume and is a little bit more consistent. David Johnson, I'm completely ignoring, and pretty much any other Houston player. So that's kind of the situation there. So let's go back to the big board now, however, because it's our turn to make a selection. Brandon Ayuk's still there. That's kind of intriguing. I think he becomes a good value pick. Dallas Goddard is someone that I like, but I'm going to go with value here. And I think Brandon Ayuk is probably the better value. Continue to load up on just great pass catchers. I think after George Kittle, obviously being the number one option in San Francisco, it goes Brandon Ayuk, then Deebo Samuel. Yes, it's tough because they are a run-first team, but they've got these young, developing pass catchers, and I think Brandon Ayuk is at the top of that wide receiver core. So I like the value that we got for him there. Now, I really doubt that we're going to be able to get my next highest ranked tight end, Dallas Goddard, at some point in the 8th round. I'd be pretty happy if we do. Just kind of looking at the quarterback position as well. We still got Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, not a bad, shot in the dark, kind of boom or bust quarterback. And then we can get another more proven backup behind him in case he doesn't pan out. That's a strategy I like to do personally when drafting Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. Of course, there goes Dallas Goddard. I had a suspicion that would be the case, but it's all right. We can look at other tight end options. So looking at the tight end position, it's going to be slim pickings here, folks. You've got Robert Tonyan, you've got Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, Irv Smith. Yeah, it's kind of tough here. If I had to go with one of these players, I would just go the probably route of Robert Tonyan and then take a flyer on someone like a Jared Cook for the LA Chargers. That's kind of been my strategy if I ignore the tight end position until very, very late. I really like the upside of Jared Cook. Is that kind of 1 year Hunter Henry replacement? Yes, you're not going to be getting like 20 plus point scoring efforts from him, but between, let's say, 8 to 12 points on a per week basis, it's not too crazy to kind of project that, especially again if it's in full point PPR scoring formats. Ronald Jones goes, good value for him there. I might go Jalen Hurts at this point in time, towards the end of the 8th round. Now, we'll see if he's available to us. That's the other question, because you see a run on quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. Jerry Jeudy just goes, so we just got to survive one more pick. And let's see if there's anybody that we're kind of missing here. I'm not a big fan of Curtis Samuel. I do really like Antonio Brown. I do like Marvin Jones. So we've got some decisions to make. But again, I'll probably just go for the fact of potentially distinguishing myself at a position like quarterback. So going, again, someone like a Jalen Hurts, and then later getting maybe a Joe Burrow, something like that to back him up. Now, Michael Gallup goes. I mentioned some of those tight ends. I don't think that Robert Tonyan is going to put up the same numbers that he did last season. That's just going to be crazy, especially in the touchdown department. So I'll get Jalen Hurts here, kind of for the upside. Or, I'm kind of debating now whether I should get him first or Antonio Brown. I'll get him and then get Antonio Brown on the wraparound. We'll see if that pans out or not. I'll be curious. We've got some auto picks before us, so of course, Antonio Brown just gets drafted. But hey, it could have been Jalen Hurts because one of those auto picks did take a quarterback. So keep that in mind. We've got a quarterback on our roster now. Probably with a pick in the 10th round, I'll look at the backup quarterback position right now. Running back, I don't really love anyone here. Damian Harris would probably be my choice. People are saying out of New England that he's the kind of predetermined starter. He's the one that's looked the best, yada, yada. And if Cam Newton isn't the starter in New England, Damian Harris's value is going to probably go up substantially. So let's add him as a nice depth piece. And then our last two picks, what I'll do, because it's going to, again, turn into a situation of auto picks and maybe some defensive kickers being drafted, which I'm not a big fan of for the sake of these mock drafts. I think it's just more beneficial to talk the players, the skill position players, and our expectations there. So right now, what I'm going to do here is kind of just queue up the guys that I would like to draft. I would like to get Matthew Stafford as our backup quarterback to kind of get that Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford stack. And then at tight end, I mentioned this before, I didn't love anybody here. And in those situations, I'm perfectly fine just queuing up someone like a Jared Cook. Noah Fant would probably be a good value, but just the quarterback situation in Denver just is really not ideal, to put it nicely. If they get a actual quarterback that's not Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, then Noah Fant is great value, and he probably moves up to tier 2 category, or at least towards the bottom of it, or top notch tier 3 type of tight end. But right now, there's also a lot of mouths to feed in Denver. Let's not forget that. So that's just something to keep in mind. And again, he's drafted, so it's not really a point of discussion anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much been determined. Adam Trautman is also someone that is intriguing in New Orleans. A lot of people kind of have him pegged as a sleeper, and I would agree with that. I just think that Jared Cook is probably a safer choice. Adam Trautman probably definitely has a higher upside, higher ceiling, but his floor is also very, very low. We've already got Michael Thomas as well, so I feel pretty good about getting Jared Cook. People are going to call it a reach, whatever. We're just rounding out our roster at this point in time. So we'll get Matthew Stafford, hopefully, as our backup quarterback. Like I mentioned, it's the strategy I like to go to when drafting a boom or bust player earlier on for whatever the position might be. And in this case, it's quarterback. So Jalen Hurts, back him up with Matthew Stafford. That's a nice little punch there. And a lot of options at the quarterback position. So to me, that's really good value on Matthew Stafford, period. At the end of the 10th round, in my opinion, he's a top 10 quarterback. So that's nice, potentially a bargaining chip. And let's kind of start breaking down the roster. We have got, like I mentioned, Jalen Hurts. Ezekiel Elliott was our first round pick. You could argue which running back you should go with at that point in time, but I do think the main thing is you do go running back. It was too early, 4th overall for a pass catcher, even Travis Kelce. Then we went wide receiver heavy afterwards in the 2nd and 3rd round. Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas. You could make the case we should have gone Chris Carson instead of Michael Thomas. We still got Cooper Kupp in the round afterwards. So that ended up being all right, having Cooper Kupp as a wide receiver 2 instead of Michael Thomas, and then having Chris Carson. We would have been able to get Myles Gaskin as well again. But, I think at the end of the day, I'm all right with the choice that we made. It wasn't too, damning one way or the other. We maybe got a little bit lucky with Myles Gaskin, so I'm all right there. But here we're going to make our last pick, and that will be Jared Cook, like I mentioned, as our starting tight end. Nothing too crazy, nothing too flashy, nothing too sexy, but I think in PPR scoring, he will be that Hunter Henry role, which is a borderline top 10 tight end. And, I really love our pass catchers here. I try to get some guys at the running back position later on our bench with some nice upside. I do like James Robinson. I think he has probably, in deeper leagues, and even in a 12-team league, I think you can play him as a flex. Now, obviously, that situation is going to be very interesting all season long, but I've got my money on James Robinson still being the lead dog in Jacksonville. Then Ayuk, great value on Ayuk. Damian Harris, the logic with Cam Newton and Mac Jones. If Mac Jones takes over that position, Harris will be very valuable, even though he is more standard suited. Then we got Matthew Stafford. So overall, I'd probably give this draft a B-, something like that. I love our pass catchers. They all have huge upside. I'll go C+, B- just because it's a tough situation. It's a tough range to be in kind of after those first 3 picks in the first round to kind of decide which running back you're going to hang your hat on. I went with Ezekiel Elliott this time, and, a couple of months from now, we'll see if it pays off. But at the end of the day, let me know what you guys thought. Did you agree, disagree with these picks? What did you think of the team? If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.